little bit shorter. I'm a bookworm. Over the years, I've collected a large number of children's books. One of the books is a collection of portraits, young black faces drawn by Tom Feelings in a variety of places. The book is called I Saw Your Face. It celebrates the survival and shared connections between people of African descent around the world. I like the book. When I read the captions and look at the pictures, I see human beings created in the image of God. We have a God who sees. We could go all the way back to the creation story in Genesis 1. God saw everything he had made. It was supremely good. The story of Hagar in Genesis 16, named the Lord, "You are El Roi," she said, because she said, "Can I still see after he saw me?" At the burning bush, the Lord told Moses, "I've clearly seen my people oppressed in Egypt. I've heard their cry of injustice because of the slave masters. I know about their pain." God sees. We have a God who sees. Yet in our text from Isaiah 58, the people have accused God of not seeing. Why do we fast and you don't see? Why afflict ourselves and you don't notice? The people believe they are doing everything right. They seek the Lord. They want to know God's ways. They want to be close to God. They even fast, wearing sackcloth and ashes, seeking God's favor. Isaiah chapters 56 through 66 refer to the return of the exiles from captivity in Babylon in the years following 539 BCE. The returning exiles faced challenges. Jerusalem was a pile of rubble, including the temple. Disputes arose over who could help rebuild the temple and the walls. Those returning from exile who could prove their descent from Israel by genealogical records were given preferential treatment. See Ezra chapter 2. There was concern to maintain the purity of the people. Ezra chapter 10 tells how those who had married foreign women were told to send their wives away. Nehemiah records land disputes and hunger. Families had to mortgage their fields to pay tax and sell their daughters into slavery so that they could buy grain for food. Ezra 4, verses 1 to 5, tells how foreigners were blamed for the problems, even though they wanted to help and had been devoted worshipers of God for generations, while the exiles were away in Babylon. Does any of this sound a little bit familiar to us today? We certainly hear it in political rhetoric that blames immigrants for all of our national problems. We hear it when ICE agents use racial profiling to detain and deport people. We hear it when billionaires get huge tax cuts and profitable government contracts, while the funds for health care, education, food programs, and other benefits are cut. We even hear it in our own Mennonite history of maintaining boundaries that separate us from others in the world so that we remain pure. We hear it any time one group of people believe that they are especially chosen and deserve special privileges that others do not have. Before we are too hard on the returning exiles, remember that they were trying to do what was right. They believed that by keeping themselves pure and doing worship the right way, they were pleasing God. They wanted to be close to God, but they did not see what God really desires. Although the Torah, the books of the law, talk about correct worship, they also talk about relationships between people. Deuteronomy 15 verse 11 declares, "Poor persons will never disappear from the earth. That's why I'm giving you this command. You must open your hand generously to your fellow Israelites, to the needy among you, and to the poor who live with you in your land. Deuteronomy 24, verses 14 and 15 command, "Don't take advantage of poor or needy workers, whether they are fellow Israelites or immigrants who live in your land or your cities. Pay them their salary the same day, before the sun sets, because they are poor and their very life depends on that pay, and so they don't cry out against you to the Lord. That would make you guilty." God sees. God sees what we do not see. God sees the people that we prefer not to see. God's message through Isaiah declared, "On your fast day, you do whatever you want and oppress all your workers. You quarrel and brawl, and then you fast. You hit each other violently with your fist. You shouldn't fast as you are doing today if you want to make your voice heard on high." Our relationship with God is connected to our relationship with others, with those we meet in daily life, with those whose lives are affected by the choices that we make. Isaiah says this, "Isn't this the fast I choose, releasing wicked restraints, untying the ropes of a yoke, setting free the mistreated? Isn't it sharing your bread with the hungry and bringing the homeless poor into your house, covering the naked when you see them, and not hiding from your own family? Then your light will break out like the dawn, and you will be healed quickly." Isaiah says that when we do these things, then we will call, and the Lord will answer. God will say, "I am here." The Gospel of Matthew tells us that when Jesus saw the crowds who followed him, he went up on the mountain and taught his disciples. He began with the blessing that we call the Beatitudes. Listen to these words from the Anabaptist Bible. "Happy are people who are hopeless, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Happy are people who are humble, because they will inherit the earth. Happy are people who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness, because they will be fed until they are full. Happy are people who show mercy, because they will receive mercy. Happy are people who have pure hearts, because they will see God. Happy are the people who make peace, because they will be called God's children. Happy are people whose lives are harassed, because they are righteous, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Happy are you when people insult you and harass you and speak all kinds of bad and false things about you, all because of me. Be full of joy and be glad, because you have a great reward in heaven. In the same way, people harassed prophets who came before you." Jesus is speaking to people living under the oppression of Roman rule and unjust kings. They knew what it was to be heavily taxed. They knew how precarious life could be. They knew a violent world where perceived insurrectionists were hung on Roman crosses and upstart prophets were beheaded by cruel kings. These are the people Jesus said were happy, blessed. These are the people Jesus spoke to when he said, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world." Salt is precious. Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt. That's where our word salary comes from. Salt was necessary. Without it, food would spoil. Although pure salt remains salty, when diluted with impurities or too much water, it can lose its saltiness and become useless. Jesus told the hopeless, the meek, the poor, the ones suffering from injustice, that they were precious, necessary, like salt. Jesus told these people, this community, that they are the light of the world. Jesus saw them. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. Let your light shine before people so that they can see the good things you do and praise your Father in heaven. Jesus did not come to replace the law or the prophets, but to fulfill them. Jesus showed us what life looks like when we live God's way and love people as God loves people. Jesus called disciples from the workers, the fishermen, the tax collectors, the zealots. Jesus touched lepers, the untouchables of his day. Jesus was not too righteous to share a meal with those the Pharisees considered unworthy. Jesus understood the law and the prophets in a deeper way that the Pharisees did not, in a way that the returning exiles did not. Our worship of God is connected to our relationships with people. Our worship is acceptable to God when we treat each other right, when we treat all people with mercy and compassion, with love that is not rooted in sentiment, but in actively seeking the well-being of the other, no matter who that other is, when the other, the neighbor, is anyone and everyone that our lives affect. When justice means putting things right, restoration rather than retribution and vengeance. When we live Jesus' way, God's way, we are the city on the hill, the light that draws people to God, that knows God. God is the God who sees our faces, all of our faces, and God loves each and all very, very much. May we have eyes to see as God sees, for all are created in the image of God.